I'm Millie Weaver, and you're watching the Millennial Millie Show. Well, Joe Biden has been falling in his polls. Americans are not happy with him, and even the Democrats are now acknowledging that Biden has been a complete failure. And of course, Kamala Harris hasn't been trailing too far behind in her disapproval amongst Americans. So Joe Biden recently went to Ohio in order to really rally the union workers and middle-class Americans because Ohio is a bellwether state, it is a swing state, and they say that as goes Ohio, goes the nation. Meaning, in virtually every U.S. election, Ohio has always voted with whoever the president is to be, except for, of course, in 2020. That was the anomaly in which Ohio went for Trump, but then of course, we had Joe Biden, which we can talk about election fraud in another video or another live show. But first, let's just go to the bed that the Democrats have made and how they are now sitting in it. So Joe Biden in Ohio, in his speech, he goes on to blame anyone and everyone but himself for the reason why America is in the problems that we're dealing with right now. Of course, Joe Biden wants to blame big bad Putin for the reason why his polls have gone limp, when Putin himself has little to do with American politics and the American economy whatsoever. But that won't stop Joe Biden from blaming Putin. So let's go to this clip here where Joe Biden blames Putin for his problems.
Putin tax increase.
Right here.
We got a long way to go because of inflation, because of I call it the Putin tax increase. Putin because of gasoline and all that grain he's keeping from being able to get to the market. We got a long way to go because of inflation, because of I call it the Putin tax increase. Putin because of gasoline and all that grain he's keeping from being able to get to the market. We got a long way to go because of inflation, because of I call it the Putin tax increase. Putin because of gasoline and all that grain he's keeping from being able to get to the market.
So wait a second. Last I checked, Joe Biden was in charge of the United States of America, not Putin. So how is it the Putin tax hike? Well, Joe Biden's policies are the direct result of everything we're dealing with right now in the country. Joe Biden could choose to have better diplomacy with Russia and Putin. He's chose to go the way that he's went with Putin in regards to the gas and the relationship that we have with Putin. But he could have chose to not shut down the pipelines in the United States. Hey, that would have been a start. He could have chosen to push for an energy independence policy and get American energy, gas, oil, everything up and running so that we can be energy independent. But no, see, he wants to blame it all on Putin. And then he has the nerve to say, oh, because Putin's grain. You know what? Putin supplies a very small percentage of grain to the world, okay? There are many other countries that provide grain. That's not why Americans are having food shortages. It is not why we are having inflation and the economic problems that we're having. Hey, it could have something to do with how the Democrats kept pushing for all these COVID lockdowns and continuing to want to shut down businesses in the name of COVID-19. But we'll get into COVID-19 toward the end of this show because we have some really interesting updates on that regarding Pfizer and the vaccine. But we can't talk about that on all of these platforms. So that's going to be reserved for the end of the show on only Twitch. So I'm live streaming right now on various platforms, but we have to be careful because the big bad tech censorship daddies will ban us if we say things that they don't like on certain platforms. So let's just talk about Joe Biden, about how his approval ratings are in the toilet. And that's not just with conservatives, okay? It's with people in general, even the Democrats. He polled in regards to on race issues, 47% people disapproved, 38% approve. On guns, 53% disapprove, 36% approve. On climate change, 47% disapprove, 36% approve. On crime, 53% disapprove, 32% approve. the situation with Russia and Ukraine, 50% disapprove, 38% approve. On abortion, 55% disapprove, and 31% approve. So no one's happy with Joe Biden, not even his own constituents, not even Democrats. And this was a survey taken in June, the end of June of 2022. And it was among 1,600 U.S. adults. And, it was from June's Harvard Capps Harris poll. So his approval ratings are in the toilet. So, of course, they take him to Ohio because it's a bellwether state to see how he does in Ohio. And it doesn't look like he did too well with his turnout. And this is because Americans overall are very dissatisfied, because even your average American that tunes out of politics is not happy when you're going to the gas pump paying $5, $6 a gallon. I went to the local gas station up the road from me, and it was $5.59 because of the type of gasoline I have to put in my car, which is like the premium. $5.59 a gallon, okay? Like I filled up half a tank for $30. This is what we are dealing with here in America. And so when the Democrats, all they have to go on is race issues or climate change or whatever SJW issues they try to, put in everyone's face, at the end of the day, Americans having a hard time putting gas in their vehicles and food on their tables, that's going to take precedent. So they're definitely worried, and they're trying to get a feel for how Joe Biden's approval is and how he's likely to do, how the Democrats are likely to do in the midterms, first of all, but also how they're likely to do in 2024 if they choose to run Biden again, which I think would be completely insane. I mean, who knows if he'll even be alive by 2024 with how he is with his age and his memory and his ramblings and whatnot. But Kamala Harris doesn't seem to be doing too well as well. Like, she is having gaffe after gaffe. Recently, following the Highland Park shooting in Chicago, Illinois that happened at the 4th of July parade, which killed 7 people, injured 30, Kamala Harris spoke at a press conference, and she used the word seriously way too many times. Check out this clip here.
Experienced, and the pain, the suffering, this should never have happened. We talk about it being senseless. It is senseless. It is absolutely senseless. We got to be smarter as a country in terms of who has access to what, and in particular assault weapons. And we got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously. So sorry for what you all have experienced. And the pain, the suffering, this should never have happened. We talk about it being senseless. It is senseless. It is absolutely senseless. We got to be smarter as a country in terms of who has access to what, and in particular assault weapons. And we got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
We got to take this stuff seriously as you are, because you've been forced to take this seriously. It's a very eclectic choice of vocabulary words there, Kamala Harris. Now, obviously, this is a tragedy, and obviously, it's not a laughing matter when you have people being mowed down at a 4th of July parade. But the thing here that is a bit laughable and almost disgusting in a way is how the Democrats just jump on any of these tragedies in order to push their own anti-gun political agenda, time and time again. And yet they push these red flag gun laws that won't do anything to actually stop a mass shooter from doing this. In fact, there were various red flag orders in place in Illinois during this shooting. And did it stop anyone? No. So it just further illustrates that putting these laws in place, gun control, red flag laws, it's not going to stop more mass shootings. Putting more guns in the hands of law-abiding gun owners is more likely to save lives than anything. It's sad that more people weren't there at this parade carrying And it's sad that we're dealing with the real issue here in society, where we have these people that want to go out and just mow down innocent people, just engage in carnage. And yet these people are just festering in these internet underground forums where they praise shooters like the Columbine shooters, and they idolize mass shooters. It's become a nihilist subculture in these forums in which these young people believe that they are becoming infamous internet like gods, and they can become famous, they can get notoriety. And that's why I believe that we are seeing so many of these copycat shooters, is because they know that the media has such a bloodlust for these mass shooting events, because they can use them and politicize them in their political agenda to disarm Americans. These mass shooters know that the minute they do a mass shooting, it's going to get national news. It's going to be put on every front page of every news website. It's going to get tons of airtime, and they're going to become infamous overnight. That's why they publish their manifestos. That's why they prepare themselves for publicity. They're doing it for the attention. So as long as we continue to give them that attention, they are going to keep doing it. And why is it that we're doing this and continuing to give them the attention, the destructive, negative attention that they crave? Because the media, in league with these Democrats and establishment, they want to disarm the American people. So thus the cycle that we've been stuck in. And I definitely think that we are going to see more copycat mass shooters. No, gun control is not the answer. It's not going to stop someone. You are not going to get that result by doing that. What you need to do is have more people carrying. More people need to be carrying in public. You need to actually open up some of these laws so that law-abiding Americans can feel more comfortable carrying their guns on their person. Train these teachers and staff. Train them in firearm safety. Have them carry. Have them go to classes where they're shooting. Have them also take some kind of behavioral analysis of a test where they can undergo some kind of a psychological or behavioral exam, so that you know that they're not somebody who's unstable, who's likely to just open up shooting on their children in their classroom, obviously, because even police officers do that to an extent, okay? But get them a weapon, get them trained, get them licensed, have the teachers and the staff carry, have the schools be safe. You don't ever see these mass shootings happening inside of courthouses. You don't see them happening inside of Congress or inside of the Senate or inside of any of these buildings. Why? Because they have security there. They have metal detectors and scanners. No one's getting in that building with any type of weapon or gun. Okay? So why don't we put that same effort into protecting our children? Okay? That's the real question here. We care more about these decrepit politicians sitting on their high horses and these judges and their safety than we do about the safety of the most innocent, the future of our nation. Those are things that we need to address. But see, the Democrats, they don't want to address the real issues. They want to continue to create more of these gun-free safety zones, which we know are the prime targets for these mass shooting events. It's disgusting. And then, of course, we have the recent Uvalde, Texas shooting. And it turns out that there was a law enforcement police officer that had the opportunity to have shot and essentially incapacitated the mass shooter, which killed 19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School. And he radioed into his supervisor and asked the supervisor for permission as to whether or not he could take out this armed person going into this Robb Elementary School. And he had that opportunity, and he didn't do it because the response or the request was not responded to quickly enough from the supervisor. So the supervisor responded too late to the question, which I don't see why that law enforcement officer needed to have asked his supervisor or radioed into supervisor. If you see an armed individual and trying to enter into a school, you have every reason to go hold them up, at least at gunpoint, and say, stop, put your weapon down. And if they don't, shoot them dead right then and there. Like, if the person is armed and isn't going to release their gun and put their gun down, and they're trying to walk into an elementary school, that officer has a right to apprehend that person and take them out so that they're not a threat. But, you know, of course, they had to ask their supervisor. There's so many things that were just mishandled in this Uvalde, Texas shooting. And I really hope that the parents whose children were killed in this senseless act definitely sue the law enforcement agency that mishandled this entire thing, and use that as a way to definitely get more information through discovery processes, and just really get to the bottom of what really happened here, the negligence, the failure to perform your duties as officers to uphold the peace and keep the safety of these children. They definitely need to do something about this, because we can't have people, you know, just deciding at the last moment, okay, I'm going to go become a police officer. I'm going to take that badge, that oath, and I'm going to accept that pay, a pension, whatever, and then just hide and not do what you need to do to protect other people, because that's not right. So now let's go to the Highland Park gunman. So the Highland Park gunman, at first, you know, it seemed like the media was trying to say that he was a right-winger or conservative, and it was really pushing with their narrative. And then later on, it kind of came out that he was definitely more of a left-leaning kind of guy, and in fact was dressed as a woman in many of his pictures, and had some pretty weird, bizarre videos up on social media as well, where he's dressed like almost like, he's basically dressed like a transgender. He's wearing pink hair. I mean, he was dressed like a transgender individual, I believe, when he did this 4th of July shooting. Well, at least it was kind of one of those things where the guy's kind of androgynous. You can't really tell too well with some of these people. But the left-wing narrative that they were trying to push, that this was a white supremacist, right-wing extremist thing, kind of dwindled pretty fast as the information started coming out right after this shooting happened on July 4th. Now, it's very sad. The situation is very tragic. 7 people died, many people injured. We do know that there's a 2-year-old boy that was orphaned in this entire event. He emptied 2 30-round magazines. He apparently was standing on the rooftop of one of the buildings and was firing down below at the people. But if you really look at and analyze this individual's like his social media and what he was into, he really fits the build for the whole like nihilistic subculture. And one of the things that this subculture is really into, that we've seen time and time again with a lot of these shooters, is they also glorify like the Batman, Joker type thing, or like the Suicide Squad, Joker. So you see that, like the rainbow colored hair. And you saw that even with the Batman shooter, how he's dressed like the Joker. You see that a lot in the whole nihilistic thing. And really that movie, The Joker, the newer movie, The Joker, it illustrates nihilism very well. So if you were to watch that, you'd fully understand the perspective. But so a toddler was found alone after the Highland Park shooting, and turned out that both of his parents were killed in the shooting. So Kevin McCarthy, 37, and Irina McCarthy, 35, were amongst the 7 people that were killed. And unfortunately, this 2-year-old was found alone and bloodied. And it's very tragic. He's been orphaned from this whole thing. They've set up a GoFundMe account for him, and he's now going to be raised by his grandparents. So it's a very horrible, horrible tragedy that happened. And of course they do this sick, depraved individual does this on 4th of July. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. We can all acknowledge that this is a tragedy, this is horrible, this is senseless, brutal murder, and that we need to figure out a real solution to stop these and really to protect people. But we can also acknowledge that while at the same time acknowledging that Americans have that Second Amendment right to self-defense. And by taking away our right to self-defense, you're only making us more of sitting ducks for sick, depraved individuals like this to come and just mow down innocent people. So it's not going to solve anything by taking guns away and making more people sit there. I think that a lot of these sick individuals wouldn't be doing what they're doing if they didn't view most of these people in general, in public masses, whatever, as sitting ducks, right? I think I saw a video recently on TikTok, and it was you had all these guys sitting in a room, and in comes, I think, Jason, the one that wears like that hockey mask, and he from the horror movies, which everyone perceives as scary. So he walks in the room, and you think that this is when everyone goes, ah, and runs and scatters. But instead, all the guys sitting in the room, like, pull up their guns. They have everything, and they're just like, what, you know? And then the Jason guy walks out of the room. It's like, okay, never mind. So people that want to be villains, that want to be like these evil, nihilistic people that want to cause innocent people harm, they don't want to prey on people that are willing to fight. They want to prey on what they believe is weak individuals, people who come off as prey, so to speak, which gun owners don't come off as prey. So people are now asking, are the parents of this Highland Park shooter culpable? Because apparently the shooter, Robert Crimo III, his dad vouched for him when he applied for his firearm owner identification card in 2019. So the dad sponsored his son's application despite there being a family history of domestic violence and other concerning issues with their son's mental health. The father sponsored this firearm owner identification card for him in 2019. So now you have people questioning whether or not the parents of this individual, which to me, I can't tell in this picture. He's got long hair. He's wearing a scarf. It almost looks like he's got boobs. I don't know. But we've seen in other pictures of him online, him with pink hair and makeup on. So it's hard to tell what exactly was he transgender? Was he just some non-binary person? I have no idea. But it became pretty clear that he's definitely not some like MAGA Trump supporter as they were trying to purport. So it'll be interesting to see as this court case plays out, to see whether or not they end up filing charges on his parents for, well, here it says, just like a parent can be sued for negligently entrusting a vehicle to a child who they know to be an unsafe driver, Bob Crimo can be sued for helping his dangerous son acquire handguns and rifles. So this should be interesting to see how this all plays out in court. We know that he's going to be charged with 7 counts of murder for the 7 individuals that were killed. He's also going to be charged with multiple counts of attempted murder for the people he injured and shot. And then also tons and tons, every single bullet that was fired, he's going to be charged with discharging a firearm or unlawfully discharging a firearm. So he's going to be facing tons and tons of charges. Obviously, he's not going to be seeing the light of day anytime soon. And this is an image from the video feed from his court where he appeared for his initial court appearance. So that's what he looked like on his initial court appearance. All right. So there also was another attempt in a mass shooting that was actually thwarted this weekend, and this was also aimed at happening on July 4th at another parade or event. And this involved 2 illegal immigrants that apparently were planning to do a mass shooting, and a person or a neighbor overheard them, and they picked up a phone and they reported it to law enforcement authorities. Law enforcement authorities then subsequently went and were able to apprehend the individuals, these 2 illegal immigrants, and they looked into them, investigated them, and they found that they had been planning and plotting to carry out a like some kind of a mass shooting event. But they were only charged with he was charged with carrying a firearm as an illegal. So an illegal alien in possession of a firearm. That's what they were charged with. So that could have been bad, but I guess because they say a hero helped save numerous lives, that mass shooting was stopped and thwarted. All right, so all this talk of guns and gun control is very interesting. And of course, we've heard time and time again Democrats say that there's no reason why you would need a full magazine. There's no reason why you'd need all those bullets. That this is just people clinging to guns and wanting excessive amount of firearms. Well, there's a man named Jerome Davidson who's running for Congress, and he put out a very compelling and powerful campaign advertisement today, really illustrating why someone might need that many bullets or a full 30 bullet magazine. So let's watch this video.
One needs an AR-15 for self-defense. That no one could possibly need all 30 rounds. But when this rifle is the only thing standing between your family and a dozen angry Democrats in Klan hoods, you just might need that semi-automatic and all 30 rounds.
So there you have it. I mean, I don't think that you could actually come up with a compelling argument sitting from where the left-wing people sit. How do they argue against that video ad? How are they going to argue against that? They say, why would anyone need to have that many bullets? Why would anyone need to have an AR-15? Well, he just kind of laid out why you would need to have an AR-15. You know, they used to, some of these KKK Democrats, mind you, used to literally go and hunt down Black Americans in their homes, pull them out, and perform these horrific lynchings and go after them as a mob, right? So there's an instance where there'd be like 30 plus people going and trying to break into someone's home and attack them. So in that instance, I don't see how they could argue, okay, that you wouldn't need an AR-15 to protect yourself from that, right? So when you put it into that context, it's really hard for them to argue against it. But see, the more modern day context that we would most likely see a mob of individuals breaking into a home attacking people is probably more likely to be a mob of Antifa, right? A mob of 30 plus Antifa breaking into the home of a Trump supporter to then drag a Trump supporter out of their home and beat them in the streets. That's the more likely situation that's current in the country. But see, when you put it into this context here, it becomes very hard for the Democrats to argue against it, right? And then this is also beautiful because it's also, I believe, promoting guns and promoting firearm safety and really promoting that to the Black community in America. And we've actually been seeing that Black gun owners have been increasing in America in the recent years. So that's a good thing. More Black Americans deciding to become gun owners. That means they're going to be likely voters that want to vote to ensure the Second Amendment rights that we all hold so dear. So many pluses with that. I don't know much about this man, Jerome Davidson, and what his politics are. Obviously, he appears to be pro-Second Amendment, so that's good. But I just thought this was a very interesting video ad, so I wanted to show it to you guys. All right, so now let's move on to the Georgia Guidestones. So the Georgia Guidestones were recently vandalized, which, you know, there's been a lot of controversy over the Georgia Guidestones. I know that there's been a lot of talk about how they essentially say that there's a goal to depopulate the world by 50%, which, you know, is much disputed amongst the mainstream media. And they'd say we're all conspiracy theorists for pointing out that the elites have an agenda to depopulate the world. But when you actually hear Bill Gates and many of the other, you know, people who are part of the elite openly discussing that they think that we should be able to depopulate and have these projects where we work on depopulating the world, especially third world countries. And they talk about how they do this by going into the third world nations and giving them health care, right? By going in and ensuring that all the women can have birth control and have abortions. And by doing so, they can actually reduce the number of pregnancies, reduce the population, so to speak. So they openly discuss these things. And then, of course, the Georgia Guidestones have this inscription on there where it's discussed that there's an agenda, essentially, to reduce the global population. Now, see, I don't condone destruction of property. I think it's not a good thing when we destroy private property. So in no way do I endorse this, but you know, I do think that it kind of speaks volumes to, I think, a message that the general masses, the general people are aware of what you're trying to do, and they're not okay with it. I think that's kind of what that speaks to. Now, they're saying that this was some kind of a bomb or explosion that somebody used to collapse and explode this Georgia Guidestone pillar over here. And you could see it in the video footage that it's pretty clear that one of the pillars has completely been, you know, destroyed. It's crumbling on the floor. I think that it would have been a great idea, though, to have left it. And I'm going to tell you why. See, when we stop their plan and we prove to the world, these sick, depraved individuals, what they were trying to do, this is all evidence. This is all evidence. So why would you want to destroy the evidence of what the elites were plotting and trying to do? You know, I don't know. I have very mixed feelings on this one. Let me know what you guys feel about it in the comments section. You know, because on one hand, I think, well, this is evidence. This evidence should obviously be preserved. It should be something that people look back on in history and go, wow, some crazy sick individuals back then really thought that they were going to try to depopulate the world and wanted to kill all these people. It's kind of like how they kept around around Auschwitz and some of these other various concentration camps as a piece of history, so you can go back and look on it and say, hey, there really are sick individuals that try to do evil things in the world, and let's take note of it, let's study it, so that we don't repeat it, if that makes sense. But obviously, we're still in this battle, we're still in this fight with these elites that are trying to move towards global depopulation. So it might be a slightly different situation. All right, so let's move on now. Michael Moore, which is one of the elites, okay? Michael Moore, he rages on social media about giving up privileges of U.S. citizenship and calls for reparations to the black community. Michael Moore has gone on like an epic meltdown on social media. He's really not happy about women losing their right to murder their babies. We know that over 60+ million babies have been aborted, snuffed out since the conception of Roe versus Wade. Since Roe versus Wade was enacted, there has been, it's been eugenics. It's been its own Holocaust of sorts. When you see the millions and millions of babies, that number of babies being killed, you can't say that that's not eugenics and that's not like a Holocaust of sorts, okay? That's a lot of human beings that have literally been erased, okay? It's like an entire generation or two, completely erased from history and from time. We don't know if they were inventors or astronauts or what they were going to do in the world. They have been snuffed out. But Michael Moore's not happy about future children being protected in some states. And he believes that every woman should have the right to abort and kill their babies in the womb. And he's declaring that he's gonna do everything he can to ensure that women ensure that right. And he says, I refuse to live in a country threatened by white supremacy, and I'm not leaving. So we've got a problem, the left-wing Michigan native wrote. That's what Michael Moore said. I cannot in good conscience continue to receive the privileges of full citizenship in this land when all of its women and girls have now been by court decree declared second-class citizens with no rights to their own bodies and conscripted to a life of forced birth should they fall pregnant and not want to be. You know, a woman isn't being forced into the role of a second-class citizen by being a mother or having a baby. Like, there's something wrong there. Do you think that? So, we're second-class citizens if we have a baby. If we get pregnant and have a baby, like, what? And first of all, it's not her body, okay? It's not like she's saying, I want to be allowed to have legal suicide or something, or terminate my own life. She's saying, I want to terminate the life in my body, right? And abort it. That's what she's saying. Okay? So if anyone's being treated like a second-class citizen, it's the unborn. So he's saying he thinks that there should be a second-class citizen, and that being the unborn. Because, see, American women have rights. No one can come and kill us. No one can come and abort our life because they think we're an inconvenience. We're protected in that right. Okay? But to say that someone is allowed to be killed and snuffed out because they're an inconvenience to you, that is essentially saying that that unborn baby is a second-class citizen and that your rights supersede theirs. See, this is about the baby and the baby's body and the baby's not being second-class citizens anymore. They've got it all twisted around. Many of the times you see them talking about wanting to keep late-term abortion up until birth. It's disturbing. When some of these babies could literally just be born alive. That's the thing I think is the most sick about late-term abortion and third trimester abortion, is because when you actually look up what that all entails, a third trimester abortion, they literally induce the woman and first they use a saline injection through the woman's stomach with an ultrasound, and they guide it in there and they inject saline into the baby's heart. So imagine being that baby in the womb, sucking your thumb, smiling, feeling comfy and cozy, because that's what they do in the womb. Okay? I've done a 4D ultrasound with my baby when she was full term. That's what she was doing. Okay? Opening her eyes, looking around, smiling, sucking her thumb. Imagine if they come and just put a big giant needle through your chest into your heart. How painful that would be. And then inject you with saline solution to kill you. Right? Only then, for a couple hours later, they induce the mother, and she gives birth to the baby vaginally anyway. That is a late-term abortion. So if she's just saying this is really about my body and I just don't want the baby in my body, then there's no reason why you would need to inject saline into the baby's heart to kill it, to then induce the woman to have the baby as she would naturally anyway, if she gave birth to the baby alive. It is not about her body. It is about murdering the baby. Plain and simple, okay? Plain and simple. They could try to argue it with the early term abortion, only because at that point, the babies are not viable outside the womb in most instances, and they do rely on a mother to take care of them. And that's the argument they stick with. However, there's no newborn baby on this planet that's fully viable and capable of caring for itself after being born. Meaning, every single newborn baby, if someone doesn't pick it up and wrap it and keep it warm and change its diapers and feed it, it's going to die. Meaning, every single newborn human coming into this world has to be cared for by an adult, right? So, to obligate that, yes, because you decided to engage in the act of reproduction and you got pregnant, that you cannot kill that life in you, I don't think that that's wrong to do. It's just, But see, that's why they call it a clump of cells, so that they can try to disconnect that. All right, so let's go into big tech. And big tech has definitely been on a massive power grab lately. But one of their recent accomplishments that they're now talking about and touting is Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, which, remember, Mark Zuckerberg donated almost $500,000, about $400 million, to the 2020 election and various blue NGO organizations that ensured to get out the vote and ensure that Democrat voters got out and voted during the pandemic, aka they targeted swing states with tons amount of money illegally. And I do not know how Mark Zuckerberg is not in prison for this. Oh, because he's a freaking billionaire and he's in with the power elites. That's why. But anyway, Mark Zuckerberg is bragging on, online and, through press releases about how they now have this new AI superpower where they can translate, interpret over 200 languages with their AI translation. Now, most people would just think, okay, well, sure, you can now go to other... It might open the door for new technologies in that you could go to other countries and use very sophisticated translating programs in order to communicate with each other, which is like, okay, awesome, cool. But see, this is just another way so that they can further their data monitoring and their predictive AI algorithms into other populations, subsets, and fully have a good grasp in their 3D predictive models, not on just the US and English-speaking countries, but on various other countries and other languages, by fine-tuning their artificial intelligence to interpreting these various different languages. So this is a step forward in them being able to have a very, like, the superpower AI, essentially. That can understand these various languages. And I do wonder if it could try to pick up on new languages or new terminology, like how people create slang terms and things to get around censorship online. I wonder to what degree this new AI software is going to be able to more readily and quickly get around slang terminology that people use to get around censorship. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, people were using the term vacuum online in order to get around saying vaccine, right? Because the algorithms started to really they really started to go after people and accounts wanting to share information about the vaccine. So by using other terms like vacuum or whatever, people could you could fill in the blank, so to speak, and people could still convey a message to each other and get around algorithms. All right, having tech difficulties right now for some reason. Let me see if I can restart this. Okay, now I'm on there. I do not know what's going on. Let's see. My little display thing here is frozen up conveniently. All right, so I do want to get into some more of these other articles that I have, but they are definitely vaccine-related topics and COVID-19 related topics that are likely to get me banned on these other social media platforms. So I'm going to continue this conversation on Twitch, so if you guys want to follow along with this, you can go to MillennialMillie.com in order to continue to watch this feed. So go to MillennialMillie.com, or you can go to my Twitch account, which is just MillennialMillie on Twitch as well. But I think the easiest thing is literally just go MillennialMillie.com. And you could also check it out. I've got shirts, hats, stickers, posters, all that stuff on my website, MillennialMillie.com. That way you guys could help support real journalism and keep me going so I can continue to do this reporting for you guys. So I'm going to be signing off here on YouTube and Facebook, but I'm going to be continuing on Twitch. So make sure that you guys follow along, because the stream isn't over. We're just going to be talking COVID and some of the latest updates on the COVID-19 vaccines. Getting a call right now. All kinds of craziness going on. All right, so we're ending the stream on Facebook. All right, guys, thank you for joining along on this stream from Facebook, guys. Thank you. And jump over with us onto MillennialMillie.com. All right, guys, thank you for following along with us on YouTube. You can continue to watch this stream at MillennialMillie.com, or, of course, by directly going to MillennialMillie on Twitch as well. You can watch for free while it's live, so just follow along, and we're going to talk COVID, because there's some pretty interesting stories regarding the vaccine that I definitely want to get into. So